Okay, it's Henry again, and this is my work in progress video for the Master Grade Gundam Sandrock Custom EW. And first thing I'm gonna do is work on this cloak a little bit. Now, I like the shape of the cloak, I really do. I think the little tattered edges are a good touch. The folds and the wrinkles and the flow of the fabric looks pretty good to me. But these parts are a little bit too smooth. Now, I know that at 1 to 100 scale, fabric texture isn't really going to be that noticeable. It's probably going to look smooth just like this. But just for the sake of making the kit look cool and visual interest, I wanted to put some cloth texture on these cloak parts. Now, how I'm going to do that is I've got some Mr. Surfacer right here that I've mixed in with some putty. Just put like half a tube of Tamiya putty in with a full bottle of Mr. Surfacer, and it makes this like really thick. It's like halfway between putty and primer, and it's good for puttying up small details and scratches and things like that. And it's pretty brushable as well. And what I'm going to use that for is I'm going to brush it on these cloak parts. And then I've got an old t-shirt that I just cut up into squares. And while that putty primer mixture is still wet, I press the fabric on there and then pull it off. And it will give it a, I'm not even sure if it's going to show up that much on camera, give it a cloth-like texture. Okay, here's another piece I did. Again, that shows about just as well. Anyway, gonna show it off on camera. Let's use this piece. So I've done a couple parts already, and I've already figured out that you want to do this in pretty small areas. Like, I'm gonna do half of this part because this stuff dries pretty quick. Even though it is thicker than regular primer, it does still dry within like a minute. So I'm going to generously brush this onto about half of the piece, and then I'm going to take this fabric and just lay it on there and rub it down, make sure it gets into all those little folds and wrinkles and things, and you're going to see it come through the fabric a little bit. But that's okay, because obviously I'm just throwing this away after I'm done with it. And you pull it off, and now it's got a texture. And you can go back and reapply if you want, if you notice that you missed some spaces. And now it's got a nice little cloth texture on there. And even like that wiped off a bit. You can go back and do that. And there we go. And now I can go and do this other side, and you don't even have to worry about overlapping because where you've already done it, because you're just going to be going over it with the fabric again, and it'll all be the same texture. And you can use different kinds of fabric with different textures on them. Like you could get some shop towels or some old cotton rags, and those are going to have a lot coarser texture than this shirt that I'm using, or piece of a shirt. And you can get some really interesting effects by doing that. Alright, so that's that. I'm going to go ahead and do all these other parts, and that's really the only modification I'm doing to this kit, so then I'll be ready for painting. airbrushing is done, I am applying the decals. A lot of decals with this kit. More than the other Gundam Wing Master Grades. This one has about as many decals as Master Grade Unicorn Gundam, I think. And it's got a lot of extra decals. It's got like this whole row of red decals here at the bottom. Those aren't even used. Like, they're not even mentioned in the instructions at all. So that's just extras for me to use for other projects. And now that the decals are applied, I am going to start the weathering. Starting off with a wash. On the Master Grade Ultron and Heavy Arms custom, I did like an all-over wash. And they came out a little bit too dark. I mean, I was going for a dark, grungy look on them, but they came out a little bit too dark, so I think for this one, I'm not going to do an all-over wash. I'm just going to sort of take a medium-sized paintbrush and go over the panel lines and the recessed areas, anywhere where dirt and grime and stuff would collect. Just like this. Down these little indentations, things like that. And then just go in with the paper towel and wipe that down. And so that way I'm still getting the effect of the wash, but honestly I'm not wasting as much wash, and it's not tinting the kit quite as dark as it did on Heavy Arms and Ultron. Just getting that first layer of desert grime on there. Alright, and this is usually always one of the trickiest parts of painting a Master Grade, is painting these teeny tiny little 1:100 scale pilot figures. A lot of people always ask me, like, oh, what's the trick to painting the little 1:100 scale pilots? How do you do it? What's the best way? Honestly, the best way to paint these things is with the smallest paintbrush you can find, a steady hand, and a lot of patience. There's no like trick that's gonna automatically make them look good. It's just being really patient and really careful and taking your time. Although I guess two tricks I do have. One is not trying to paint every single microscopic detail. Like, I don't paint the eyes on these things. I paint the face a flesh tone, but I do not try to paint the eyes on these things because there's not really much of a point. They're so small that you wouldn't even really be able to see the eyes anyway. And if you do try to paint the eyes, you're just going to screw it up. So, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who do paint the eyes on these things, and probably some of you might actually even do a good job of it, and to you, I say congratulations, you are a better modeler than me, but I am not there yet. Another trick, which actually can apply to painting small details on the actual mobile suit itself, is to hold your breath while making a brush stroke. When I'm doing details this small, I basically just hold my breath whenever my paintbrush is actually touching the model. So other than that, just a lot of patience and a lot of time. And now I am finishing up the chipping. I did two different chipping layers this time. I did a layer of dark rusty chipping, and now I am going back in with some stainless steel to do a little bit of lighter chipping. And I mean, if you see me do work in progress videos on weathered kits before, you've seen me do chipping, so not really doing anything much different, or actually any different at all. Just going in and adding random paint chips. I want to get back into hairspray chipping. I did it about a year ago on my Origin gun tank, and I've been wanting to give that another try. But honestly, for something like a master grade like this, doing it with a paintbrush is just easier and quicker. And since this is a commission kit, I want to try to get this done and get it back to the customer as quickly as possible. So, thus the paintbrush chipping. Alright, winding down on this kit. I'm doing a little bit of dry brushing here. Not going to do any on the actual Sandrock's body, but I did want to do some dry brushing on this cloak, because I'm actually really happy with the way the cloak looks so far. I airbrushed it and then did a wash on it, and it's looking really nice, I think. And now I'm gonna do some dry brushing to bring out some of that fabric texture that I did earlier, and also to make some of these put some highlights on these folds in the cloak. And last but not least, before I go on to top coating, I am doing some pigments on the cloak here. Just some dusty, sandy stuff down here at the bottom. And I've kind of done a mixture of wet pigments and dry pigments. I've got some pigment mixed with water there that I've already applied, and then just sort of worked in with a sponge and a brush and made a nice little gradient. And now I'm sort of going in with some dry pigment just to even everything out. So this is the last step before I get this guy top coated. Also doing this on the feet as well, and on the ankle armor. Alrighty, so the Master Grade Sandrock Custom is now finished. And did a pretty similar paint job to what I did on Heavy Arms and Ultron. Just did a wash and some chipping and a little bit of pigment work and left it at that. Pigment basically just around the bottom of the feet, showing some dust and dirt. And did some heat staining on the heat shortels along with some chipping on top of that. So turned out pretty good. I think I was a little bit worried about the shade of purple at first because the base coat, like the darker base coat I used for the pre-shading, was like a very reddish grape type purple, that almost like a wine purple, and I was kind of getting worried about it, but luckily the highlighting layer fixed that and got it sort of a more neutral, almost like kind of a grayed out purple like it's actually supposed to be. So in the end, I'm very happy with the purple because I don't actually have any purple paint because I don't use it that often, which makes me think that I probably need to buy some. I usually just mix red and blue, and purple is a very difficult color to mix, so this kit in particular has taught me that I probably need to go ahead and just buy a bottle of Mr. Color Purple and use that from now on. But in this case, I managed to make it actually look halfway decent. And here is the cloak parts. I did some weathering on them. Basically just did the airbrushing and the base coat and highlighting with the airbrush. Then I went in with the wash, the same wash I used on Sandrock, and did on the cloak parts just to sort of darken the areas in between the folds. And I really did the wash pretty heavy down around the bottom because I wanted the bottom to be real dirty and grungy and just dusty and all kind of stuff. Then I did some light gray dry brushing over the whole thing to make these folds pop out more, and also that texture. I wanted that to pop out some more as well. And then did some pigments with a mud color down here at the very bottom, and I think it turned out pretty good. The fabric texture turned out okay. I think with the paint layers that went on top of it, it turned out just being kind of a gritty texture. It's not really all that fabric-y, but at least it's not perfectly smooth like it was at the beginning. So I guess in that aspect, I'm happy, even though it's not really a as much of a fabric texture as I originally wanted. But I think it looks halfway decent. And when I upload the photos onto my blog, I'll show off some pictures of it, of Sandrock wearing the cloak. So that about does it for this work in progress video and this project, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.